This is I4CP's Next Practices Weekly. If you're not familiar with I4CP, we are the Institute for Corporate Productivity. We're a human capital research firm, and we focus on discovering the people practices that drive high performance in organizations. We define high performance through some fairly standard business metrics that you see here: revenue growth, market share, profitability, and customer satisfaction. And we use this criteria in all of our quantitative surveys when we do a major study on any topic across human resources, human capital. We like to tease out what those high-performing companies, those roughly top quartile, are doing so differently than the bottom quartile. And then we bring that to you in our reports, our case studies, our infographics, all of our research. We're a member-based organization. You see here just a small sampling, some of the logos of some of our member companies. We've got over 200 organizations in membership, ranging from very large companies like Amazon, 3M, Visa, Microsoft, and others, as well as some smaller. We've got regional hospitals. We've got unicorn startup companies. They also range across all market industry verticals, from high tech to financial, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, you name it. If you're with a member company and on the call today, special welcome to you. Great to have you with us. If you're not with a member organization but would like to learn more about what that entails, just reach out to anyone at I4CP or go to our website and you can get more information there. My name is Tom Stone. I'm a senior research analyst here at I4CP. And today, my co-host, I'm happy to be joined by another senior research analyst at I4CP, my colleague, Katheryn Brekken. Good morning, Katheryn.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Good to have you with us. And we're going to get to and introduce our guest in just a moment. Looking forward to the conversation that you'll facilitate with him. Want to note, though, what you see there on the right, the upcoming calls. This is Next Practices Weekly. So we've got weekly sessions coming up. You see we've got folks joining us from TrueBridge, Children's Minnesota, and Krispy Kreme coming up on May 23rd, May 30th, and June 6th. Our topic today, as it was last week, is going to once again be on artificial intelligence, AI, particularly generative AI, but AI more generally. So I did want to note for I4CP members, we've got a nice collection of resources. Zeta will put the link to that over in the chat. There's a few of the resources that are available to the broader public, so I'd encourage everyone to check it out. Some of the resources are, of course, member only. But we had a great conversation last week with Brandon Roberts from ServiceNow. If you missed that one, I'd encourage you to check it out. All the recordings and slides from all of these sessions are available up on our archive. Goes back 4 years. We started doing Next Practices Weekly under various names over the years, back in 2020, early on during the pandemic. And we always make sure that the sessions are recorded and available for everyone. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to you, Katheryn, to facilitate the conversation with our special guest today.
Thanks, Tom. I am so stoked to be here today, and you all should be too. I first met Rob in 2023. At one of the things I do here at I4CP is I support a board of people analytics leaders, and Rob came and spoke to our group and really just kind of like blew us away. He has a wealth of knowledge on AI, and I think we're going to hear some really exciting insights from him today. So Rob, welcome. And if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about your background in analytics and your role at BDO Digital.
Yeah, sounds great. Welcome. Thank you guys for having me today. I look forward to talking with everybody. So yeah, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as I go through this. So so my name is Rob Wellen. I'm currently the managing director of data and AI at BDO Digital, right? So what does that mean? So BDO Digital, what we do is we're a full service consulting firm helping organizations use technology to grow their business, reduce costs, and increase operational efficiency. So I lead our data and AI practice right now, but we also do lots of stuff, with things like cybersecurity, with building applications, with more cloud and infrastructure as well. So we're for about 700 people in the organization of BDO, right in the advisory division, and continually growing on that. So that's a little bit about who we are. What I do, just a little bit about me. I am based in Chicago, so lifelong Chicagoan. So yes, Cub fan, Bear fan right now. Married, I've got 2 kids that are going to be both in high school here in the fall. So a lot of exciting times for us as well. I'm also on a couple of boards, one for a local Tri-Town YMCA. So I do a lot of community impact work, volunteered during the pandemic doing helping with food delivery. And then I'm also on the board of a couple innovative AI startups right now. So fascinating time to be in AI, and excited on that. And then I think for me, my team, in my background, just so everybody kind of knows, I kind of come from a very untraditional way of getting into AI. Most people kind of come from the tech or the hands-on. Whereas I come from the business development and sales and go-to-market side. So my background is I've always been in sales and business development, right? And marketing and leadership and those kinds of things. And really been in the data and AI space for about 15, 16 years right now. So really been hardcore into that, even to the point where I actually have a master's degree in information management and data science. So I can also go pretty deep. I'm not a hands-on keyboard person anymore, right? So I can't write code or anything like that, but definitely pretty knowledgeable, pretty deep. And getting my master's was probably one of the better things I've done. That's a little bit about who I am, my background, who I am, what I do on that. So
that is fascinating. And really, like, when you're thinking about navigating all of the challenges and uncertainties of AI, like, you've got the full gamut there. You're talking about strategy, change management, and actually building these various different models. So I can't wait to dig into this further. First, let's do a really fun poll question. This is Rob's brainchild. If we could pop that up here. We want to ask, if you could use AI to predict the future, what would you want to know? Go ahead and take a few moments and go through those options and let us know what you think. In the meantime, Rob, what would you want to know?
great question. So again, I'm a big sports person, so I grew up in the Jordan era, right? Played basketball, played football, so I love sports. I'd love somebody to predict if the Bears are actually going to do anything this year. So that'd be my big thing.
And you can select two answers here because I kind of figured what the number one answer would probably be. And so then I'm kind of interested what your secondary choices are as well. So you can pick up to two.
Yeah.
What would your second be?
Well, sports outcomes, I don't know. Like the personal life thing, maybe, right? I don't know, winning lottery numbers, that'd probably be fun, right?
I don't know, more money, more problems. That's not where I'm thinking it. I'm kind of curious about future technological advancements. I mean, this thing is exploding so quickly. We just had the OpenAI announcement of ChatGPT 4.0, which is pretty cool. So there's just so much changing, but you can see the majority of us would choose the lottery numbers. All right.
And that's why I made it a pick two, because I knew that the lottery would probably be the number one answer, and I didn't want that to be the runaway choice. But a lot of folks, chose some of the other ones, maybe as their only answer or as their secondary answer. Future technology advancements coming in strong, major world events, people wanting to know what's coming around the curves, given how crazy things are. Personal life milestones, sports coming in last, but Rob, with you, I'm a big sports person, so I probably would have chosen that as mine.
All right. Well, AI is such a burning topic. So I want to take a moment, Rob, to get your sort of overall perspective on AI, generative AI in particular. Where are we right now? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question, right? Even for me and my team, right? We've tried literally everything over the last 6 to 12 months. Some has been wildly successful. Some of it, some of it hasn't worked very well, right? Where I would say most organizations are at right now with AI, I think it's, if I kind of look back over the last 3 months, last year was kind of the year of the hype and generative AI came out, right? You had 100 million people join it in like 3 months, which again, biggest technological investment. So there's just last year was a lot of, we did a lot of this education, right? About what it was, how it impacts your business, right? We did a lot, so people were in like heavy education mode of like, just what is it, right? We know it's coming. I don't know if you saw Penn announced you can get an undergrad in AI now, which is like amazing. I tell my kids to go get an undergrad, right? So there's a lot of education, and that kind of bleeded over into this year as well too, right? So I think that's kind of one big thing I would say. The second big thing is I think it's calmed down a little bit, right? Where like people are trying to figure out how to fit it into their strategy, how to fit it into their operation. So like our discussions have gone from like just heavy education and strategy and helping people kind of navigate it to like, really what can you do today, right? And what I would tell people, right, is that there's a lot of AI, kind of everybody, there's a lot of just AI energy out there, like of the models and things like that. But when you look at the circles I'm in and you look at the organizations we're at, like where we're at today is like, this is the year of like building up your capabilities and your people. It's not very cool, sexy stuff, but it's really just, where we're at is just kind of getting your basics, getting your foundations down today, right? So that next year, the year after, right, you're set up for success and you're not behind other organizations. So I would say we are in the lay the foundation year and hire people, kind of get your strategies in place, build your infrastructure is what we're seeing. And again, it's really now too. It's really in the next 3 to 6 months. Most people aren't thinking past that. So it's really kind of like what's actionable today, right? That we can invest a little bit of money that has a little bit of risk, but still kind of moves it forward, right?
Katheryn, I know you've given a lot of presentations on behalf of I4CP on AI, generative AI, our studies and so on.
Yeah.
Does that ring true for what you're seeing when you're talking with some of our member organizations?
Absolutely. This building capabilities thing, though, I think is going to be constant throughout whatever we see, beyond 3 to 6 months. As this continues to evolve, we're going to continually be playing catch up with, making sure our workforce is prepared and ready to safely and effectively use generative AI. But, when I think about like product development and, introducing a new technology into a market, you think about awareness. Yes, that's absolutely right. That's the first thing we have to do. But then we also have to get people to try this. And so what I talk to a lot of people about is like, even if you can't use it at your organization for work, are you going home and trying, OpenAI or Claude, and sampling this so that you understand what this thing is capable of? So we have a lot of talks about even just trying, but I've seen over the last year, we talked about it at our conference in March. We asked people if they've ever tried ChatGPT, and it was like crickets. 3 people, a small percentage, raised their hands. And then we asked this year in March, and nearly everyone had raised their hands. So like everybody's got a little sample of it, but I think we need to get people more comfortable in using it, and so then they can start really thinking about it in a different way.
Yeah, I would say there is a big fear in the market right now for people, and I think there's 2 things, right? One is fear that AI will take my job, right? They see it writing things, right? So I think that's a real fear people have right now. I think the other one is fear of people who will figure out how to use AI to go faster, right? On that as well. So I think that's a real thing right now. Fear, right? Risk and fear. And that's, and especially for this group, as you think about your workforce, right? And how you enable people, right? That's a very real thing.
And that's where, as Katheryn, you were just saying, using it yourself and getting educated through actual experience comes into play. I was just at one of our member companies in Detroit the past 2 days and gave a 2.5 hour long workshop for them covering some of our research. But like we did at our conference, as you said, Katheryn, I asked them, how many of you here are experts in AI? And there were no hands that went up. This was 50 people in the talent and total rewards at a very large 150,000 employee organization. And none of them said they were an expert. But then I flipped to the most extreme in the other direction. How many of you have never even seen ChatGPT? No hands went up. That meant everyone in the room had at least seen it. And I drilled in a little, had been using it a little, often at home in their personal lives. Some of them already at work, though. And that would have been very different, say, 6 months ago.
Absolutely. If I could ask you, Rob, sort of pivot, because you do have that change management component within your team. How are you advising companies that are dealing with this FOBO, fear of becoming obsolete, or fear of people who know how to use AI? How are you helping? What do you advise organizations to do for that?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I think the big topic is we are just advising people to get started and do some incremental investment, right? I think it's easy. AI is a big topic. I literally on the AI strategy team, and like even for us, it's there's a lot of parts to it, right? So I would just what we're advising is to like pick, pick some things that are pain points for you, right? Like getting your AI platform set up, setting up, using generative AI, setting up a secure environment, using some of these heavily engineered tools like Microsoft Copilot, right? Because you just have to use those, right? And to kind of get it right. And I get me and my team, we get a lot of questions both internally at BDO, but also externally of like, what are the use cases, right? What do we do, right? And on that, and my answer is kind of like half serious, half joking, but it's like, well, it's writing, like, okay, so there's 1,000 use cases. But my point is like, even, and it's like as cool as we think we are, right? Even for me or the consulting firms or the enterprise vendors to come in and say, hey, this is what you have to do. Like people they have to use it, and they have to try it in like their daily workflow to like really get it, and I would say I'm at a point now where it's like, I don't know if there's anything I can say to convince other than like, here's what customers are doing and where others are getting value right now. And what we're just instructing people is to invest a little bit, do some exploring, right? Because you have to do that to get that comfort level.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's funny when you think about artificial intelligence, it's such a nebulous term, right? So it's been compared to like the food industry is all natural. And then as we get to know and understand these things, they seem less intelligent. Siri isn't fantastic at this point. She's not a personal assistant yet, but so I think demystifying it that way is really important. So we have another poll question here for you all. If your organization has implemented any form of generative AI for use, what are the outcomes of experimentation that you've seen so far, specific to HR? We've asked this question a couple of times, and our data really shows that the time savings and productivity are really top outcomes that we're seeing a lot. What about you, Rob? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the recent surveys, right, of like why people are buying AI and why they're using it, yeah, it's probably number 2. Increased productivity is probably the biggest one right now, just more output. The other one is, yeah, time savings, right? And what people mean by that is like, taking away some of the low-level repetitive tasks, right, that nobody wants to do. So automating that, and then the employee well-being is a big deal right now, right? The reduced burnout, right? Employee well-being is a big deal. So those are probably the top 3 that we're seeing, as far as in the HR world.
So here we have the results. A fair number of folks saying it's too soon to tell. We put that response right at the top of the choices. And then, as you said, Katheryn, increased productivity and time savings, easily the top 2 actual outcomes or benefits that people are seeing so far. This rings true with both of our studies from 2023. We did, I believe, in June or July, and then again in December. Enhanced quality coming in next. I like sort of the more strategic ones, ability to divert employees to new tasks. I think when we did our study, that came in around 15 or 20%, a little bit higher, and reduced burnout a little bit lower here. I think only 1 or 2 folks said that here. That came in a little higher from our study a while back. I think there's a lot of opportunity, to your point, Rob, enhancing well-being longer term. So I'd like to see those ones, ability to divert employees to new tasks and reduce burnout. I think a year from now, those ones will probably see higher numbers. Katheryn, what are your thoughts on these results?
Go ahead, Rob. You go. No, you.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, I think these are all good examples of the benefits, right? Like on what people are seeing the value of it. I mean, like I said, the productivity, time savings, those are all things, but reducing human error, better quality. We're starting to see better quality of just output, right? Because like, things that maybe a person manually like key in, like, bots or whatever are always on, right? They do that. And then I think the diverting employees to new tasks is a big deal right now, right? Because people want to grow, people want to do that. People are looking for new ways to get revenue, right? And it's like, you add people, and this is a way to incrementally do that. So it kind of satisfies that. So, I mean, I think these are all good.
one thing I want to call out, because we did talk about FOBO, is that 5%, said cost savings. And that's a lot lower than the, the ability to divert employees to new tasks is 2 times as high. And so I think when we think about how this is going to shake out the workforce, there's going to be this transition, right? Where the role isn't necessarily the same as it was 5 years ago, but it will evolve to include AI and new processes and tasks, right?
No, exactly. And what I would say, back to the fear of AI, like most people fear, so like you look at these, right, about your workforce and like time save, these are like the benefits. There's still that big fear, right, around it. So I think, to me, when you think about the impact of this, like, how do you get people over, we're not seeing job loss, right, from AI, like, I'm not seeing like, oh, you see it in the markets, like, the organizations will do their earnings report and be like, oh, we made so much money because of the efficiencies of AI. Like, we don't see that with our customers right now. That they're like, oh my gosh, we can do so much more. We're going to lay off a department. Like, we don't see that. So to me, those are the benefits. There's the big fear, and then you see what happens on the ground, reducing headcount, right? We don't see that, right? So
yeah, I saw a talent intelligence vendor. They had a survey and report that came out yesterday, and it was looking at the top roles that have changed dramatically over the past 2 years since OpenAI, and they're all technological type positions, not those sort of back office ones that you would expect to be replaced, or call center, whatever it is. But it was really those positions that have changed the most dramatically. It's interesting. There's also another survey I want to bring up too. It's another vendor-based survey, but this one was of 2,000 machine learning practitioners and leaders in the US. And it was asking them about the top positive outcomes that their organizations had experienced as a result of the use of generative AI. And so this is just sort of like a different hat to look at this through. It was interesting because the top answers were organizational process efficiencies and customer experience. So like we talk about quality, like that is improving the services or the products, so the delight of our customers, if you will. And this is interesting to think about. And 47% said they were seeing the ability to develop new products or services or divert employees. So like that was a much bigger chunk than what we've seen in our surveys, and just something to keep in mind. Only a third said improve profits or revenue too. So it's like, really, that's what we're seeing, is this sort of shift, this evolution, I think, of the workforce.
I agree. I think in the workforce, and for this group, the big one in the justification is the time savings and the increased productivity, right? Those are the biggies.
Exactly. What are some of the low risk, high reward opportunities you're seeing in terms of saving time and increasing productivity, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at we back to surveys or data, right? Like if you look at like what employees want, right? Back to employees, like what do they want, right? It's things like finding information, finding answers, right? To stuff. It's simple stuff, right? Summarizing meeting notes. So I don't know if everybody uses like Microsoft Teams, right? They have ability to take the voice, and like we use that at BDO. Like, again, not a crazy use case, like super sophisticated, but like just think about that. It summarizes the meetings, and then it gives you the next steps, right? So you don't have to do that, right? So again, think about your meetings, right? That's a big deal. The other one, just doing analytical work, right? Like there's a lot of co-pilots that are coming out. Like if you're big into Excel, or if you're big into like Word and PowerPoint, those kinds of things, you got assistants now, right? That can just like help you create stuff, right? And the idea there is that it maybe creates 40% of a draft that you would have had to find time, and right. So those are like, they're not like super sophisticated, but they make big impact for people, and people get these. And then just admin tasks, right? Admin tasks of like keying stuff in, data entry, right? Things that you do manually. And then the last couple are just like planning your day and creative work, right? Those are, again, just using that and that kind of stuff. They're not super sophisticated, but like they make a big impact when you go across your employee base.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear from members frequently that aren't allowing their employees to use generative AI at work, that the people are pissed. Like they want to be able to use this technology to remove the drudgery, right? And so bottom up, movement in
Stuff,
some cases for sure. Yeah. So what about automating? What are some examples you've seen using bots and automation for repetitive rule-based financial processes? Because I know you deal with that a lot.
Yeah, there's a variety of different tasks on bots, right? So, where we see automation happening is like data management automation, right? Where like maybe your team is doing like, gathering the data. That's not new. That's not AI, but that's like an automation, right? That like helps people. But like where we see like bots being used are things like, it's basic stuff, rules. It's really low level rules based. So like opening an email and doing attachments, right? Logging into different kind of application, like moving files, right? Copying, pasting, filling in forms, those kinds of things are like a big deal. Like we have another customer right now where, they have to download files from Oracle and put them into a shared file, right? And they have like a finance team manually doing that. And it's like, is that really the best use of time? So it's things like that, again, they're basic, they take a lot of time, right? Like where a bot could easily come in and they could automate that process and like key that in. And we see the other one, especially in finance, like invoice and, like if invoices come in, somebody has to look at the inbox, key it in, like do it over and over again. On that, I think for this group, we have like a top 25 like for people, for around this. And for HR, like think of like employee onboarding, offboarding, payroll. Those are like big things, right? Where you think of that process as where again you're doing low level rules based stuff all at the same time. Those are great things, right?
One of the questions I hear frequently in terms of bots is the potential for error, or hallucinations, and how that can scale with bots and quality control. How do you protect against that as an organization?
Man, big topic. So a couple things, right? And if you think of my perspective, we're helping organizations build their next gen platforms for AI, right? And so it has to accommodate for lots of different kinds of AI, both generative, predictions, computer vision, whatever, right? There's lots of things. It has to kind of, apply to data, right? And security and data protection, right? So like what we always suggest is what I would call kind of a crawl, walk, run approach, right? And really like how do you ensure that, right? Is like you put in your platforms, right? Like where you can technically data govern it, right? With like a platform, right? Where the data is in a place, it's curated, it's managed. But then the other things you do, right, is you put in some of your, and I use the terms like governance. These are big, very terms people don't like, but like, putting some kind of AI governance in place, right? And on how people to use it, what's your values? Does it apply to that? And like, how do you manage your data, right? And things like that. So those are things you can do. Those are kind of big organizational kind of things that stink, right? But it's really is, you got to have good data to fuel your AI, right? To have good quality data and good quality outputs. Otherwise, you might get random stuff.
And even
Absolutely.
when you've got good data, Angela is sharing a lot over here in the chat around some of the other negative things that can arise. One thing I wanted to surface was she said she teaches a university course on talent acquisition, recruitment, and selection, and had students do an assignment writing a job posting for a specific title and having them use ChatGPT. She said, I received 30 identical assignments back. So I think one of the things we often talk about and stress is that, using the output from generative AI, we need people to understand that you should use that as a starting point, get you maybe 80% there instead of the tyranny of the blank screen, if you will. But you want to move on from that and make it your own and finalize it to make it unique.
Absolutely. But you know what? The fact that they were all kind of very similar is an indicator of reliability, and that the model is, at least it's consistent, right?
That's
we want
true.
it. We do that. That's a good thing. And it is a security or safety criteria for some organizations when they look at these models. I also wanted to draw attention to Mike Manning, FM Global's head of people analytics and data and other magical things. He's got a great prompt in here to analyze current employer brand perception. Highly recommend you try it. It's really it looks really like it's well constructed and effective, and it might be just kind of something fun that you can do. And Mike, feel free to populate any more of those brilliant prompts that I know you have. Anyway, some other interesting examples that are coming up in the chat as well here. So it's a good thing to keep an eye on in mind as we talk about these things.
Yeah, and I think, and just like on generative, on like what people are doing here, 6 months ago, like it was the the use case, right? And everybody's kind of chasing like the use case on that. And where it's really evolved in my circles of the chief AI officer circles is really focusing in on those business processes. So think if you're in workforce, right? You think of your hiring to offboarding process, your workforce management, right in the middle of that. Think about those areas where you invest a lot of money, where you have a lot of people, right? Those are all good areas, right? And where we're seeing organizations get the most value are ones that are taking a process standpoint, because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Depending on who you talk to, they're going to have different needs, they're comped differently, right? So that's what we recommend, and that's kind of where it's evolved to at this point. So.
What are some examples that you've seen of improvement in quality? Maybe using automation to reduce errors or optimize processes or what have you?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? So again, we build AI platforms for organization, right? So where does that come into play, right? So that comes in, we see examples a lot just on data management and automation, right? So lots of organizations have just lots of data, both internal, external data that they want to bring in and manage, right? So having your AI platform be ready for that and having the quality, that I think that's one area. On that, we've already talked about bots. Bots is a great area, right, where you can do that, right? And you can reduce errors, you can have that ability on that. But I think getting those two in place, and then the third area, then you've got better output, right? You have better predictions. Your predictions are higher quality, right? Your generative AI queries are better, right? Where the quality comes up, because it's all the data, everything is governed. It's good data, it's good information. People know it's high quality, right? As well. So, and by the way, AI is driving those data quality discussions right now, because people kind of quickly want to query their internal data, whether it's HR data or finance or whatever. But what's ended up happening right now is it kind of exposes data maturity issues within these organizations, right? And it's like, wow, we don't have good quality data, so we can't like set loose generative AI. So that's kind of the quandary a lot of organizations are in right now.
Can you just like level set for some of us in the audience too? When you say quality data, like what does that mean?
Yeah, so think about generative AI. Like again, think of your organization, right? Like we've got comments on performance review, whatever, right? So basically, it means like the data's complete, right? It's got all the necessary data, it's accurate, it's up to date, right? It's those kind of attributes, right? So like when because your AI is really only as good as the data that it queries, right? So if you have lots of holes, lots of inconsistencies, it's out of you're going to get back. You got to tell AI, right, what you want to query and what you want to look at. So you got to have good data, right?
Absolutely.
And Amanda, a lot of people think that AI and generative will like spider out and query everything, and then it'll magically, and it's not what actually happens behind it, right? It's kind of I'm kind of getting technical a little bit, but like you got to have good data that can be queried, right?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to zeros and ones, right?
Mm-hmm. It really is a garbage in, garbage out. I had a friend, somebody on the chat asked about external use case. I had a friend email me the other day about they had like a bot doing outbound prospecting for him. So like he's at a law firm, and it was like, hey, we did this data, and we noticed this person. Well, half that data was scraped, and it was like people weren't there, and it was just like a terrible thing, right? But like my point is, like it was using, the idea was right, but just the data around it, how it acted, like it wasn't good. So
Interesting. Well, we have another poll question for you. We could pop that up. We want to know more about your use cases, and which of the following ways do you personally use generative AI at work? I'm very curious to see what the responses will be, because the last two times we have surveyed, we've done global surveys, we've had the largest percentage say they don't currently use generative AI at work. And at the same time, our data also shows that more than half, it was 66% of our survey participants are certain, or say it's very likely that employees are using generative AI at work without their organization's knowledge. So like there's these shadow users out there. Even in organizations where it was prohibited to use, 39% said they were certain that employees were using it anyway. So there's kind of like, I'm just curious to see where we'll end up. But what's your top use case, Rob?
To be honest with you, so I have everything at BDO, right? So I'll just tell you what we have. We have Chat BDO, which is like our internal portal that has different personas where you can like query HR, you can query your help desk. They have a programming assistant if you want to like do, and then they just have one for writing. So I literally just like will write stuff for better quality, right? Like, hey, we've got to do this, right? Yeah, drafting emails. So that's probably my number one. Research a little bit, right? Like we're creating, like I'm on the, my team, like we're heavy on like the go-to-market. So we're creating marketing stuff, right? Like how-to guides. And again, it's our data. It's our content, right? But if you think of how you had to do that in the past, you have to go to market, and you're 6 weeks down and you're talking to it. Now it's like, we do that on that as well, right? So things like that, marketing, probably those are probably for me at least the big ones.
Well, you're seeing the results here, and Katheryn, your hope for outcome came true. The I don't use generative AI at work is only sort of middle of the pack. It's no longer the top response here. And Rob, your most common one, drafting emails or other correspondence, was the most popular for folks on the call as well.
Yeah,
I love this. There's a lot of growth here. I think we're seeing and change.
Yeah.
Just good. And researching information is one of those areas where I'm always like curious. I first started thinking about like Chat GPT as like, oh, we'll use it like Google, like just to find information, right? But then, I realized when I was actually looking at sources for the model's response, these were often outdated press releases. The information is only as good as the data it found, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see how our practices will evolve. And I know OpenAI is working on challenging Google in terms of becoming more like a search engine. But how our habits to research will change as a result of this, and will it be for the worse or the better? I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting too, and I think what I'm seeing emerge too is there's different kind of personas that are emerging with generative AI right now. Just I'll comment real quick on this, but like if you think back to when like data visualization came out, like you got big data visualization users like Tableau or Power BI, right? You always had like the super user, the one who created everything, knew all the data, and they would give it out to everybody. And then you'd have an explorer who just wanted to like, kind of explore, click on it, and then just people that viewed, right? And so I think even in generative AI, this is like over the last month or so, right? We're starting to see that kind of emerge, right? That you're going to have the super users will probably use it for all those things, depending on the tools they have, and then you'll have like people that just want to explore and write emails, right? Or do research, right? So I think you're going to see.
One that I just want to call out here, Amanda just added in the chat her favorite way to use AI, creating Excel formulas. This came up at the organization that I was with in Detroit the past couple of days. There was one individual, I can't remember if they were in total rewards or another talent area, but they described how they often have to create these really complicated formulas or maybe coding macros in Excel. And it's so specific that if you were to just type in a bunch of keywords trying to describe what you're doing into Google, you might get back at some articles that someone's written or a blog post somewhere that maybe would help you along the way. But she found that using their internal version of ChatGPT that they have at this organization, she was able to type in exactly, prompt it really, really well, maybe do a couple of iterations of the prompt and then get back the exact formula she needed. And this was something that in her past, she knew how to craft herself, but it'd been, a year or 2 years or something since she had done that particular task.
It really is a remarkable learning and training device. I mean, it's your own subject matter expert really at your fingertips, right? It's very cool. What about we've talked a little bit about this, reallocating workers to higher value areas, Rob, sort of what are some of the use cases that you've seen in organizations? How have they been able to sort of add value by reallocating workers or tasks or skills?
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to answer this in a couple ways. So I think, I think because I do think fear is still a huge thing that this group, I mean, this might be your next topic, like fear of AI, right? So I think there's two angles on this, right? One is the people and how do you get them over the fear, right? And how do you kind of up level their skill thing, right? So what we're doing, what we're seeing is as a foundational layer, people are doing just like tons of training right now and enabling people. Like you said, people want to do that, right? Um, so that way you can kind of upskill your workforce to put them in that. I mean, I even like what you guys are doing, where you're deconstructing job descriptions, right, and taking out what will be automated with AI, and then adding in new things, right? So on that, so I think just from two angles of your people and upskilling them, right? Do change management. Like this is a big deal right now. And by the way, people, and that's why I love what I4CP does, because like there's not enough done on this right now on the people, like in upskilling them, right? So that's kind of one angle that I just want to say that on that. And then like where we see where the appropriating, like when you're putting in automation, that's why we recommend like the incremental change, right? When you're putting that in, what it means is that you're automating stuff people want to do. It helps with burnout, right? It helps with all that stuff, and it allows you to kind of grow those people in the digital world on that. I mean, we're seeing it across the board. We see it on my team, right? I mean, I have the AI strategy team, which is like the hardest person to hire for because they got to have all these soft skills and different things like that. But we see it everywhere, right? We see it on our programming teams. We see it on our project management. I mean, like, that's what it is. Hopefully I answered the question there, Katheryn, right? But like, I mean, it's a big deal. The people side of AI is I think, gonna be the biggest deal. The tech is there, right? We can do it now, but the people, the workforce, big deal.
Absolutely. And just to like hit upon that point about disaggregating jobs and tasks, John Boudreau has a great book on this if you care to learn more. But one of the examples from our research is IKEA that introduced a chatbot Billy in 2021, which wasn't generative AI, but they knew over time it would take more and more customer phone calls and impact the customer call agent role. And so I think it was last summer, they announced they retrained 8,500 call center workers to become interior designers, where now they can get anywhere between like $30 to $60 per customer call to help you sort of reinvent your living room. But very adjacent skills to the call center one. So it was a little upskilling. They were able to really create that role. And it was a new role. They were growing that avenue of their business. So really sort of added a lot of value there. And in this case, those workers are getting higher salaries and they had more skills under their belt. So kind of a win-win.
I bet that's a high profit service offering from IKEA as well. In addition to the products that they sell, now they've got a service layer.
But that's a real thing. And like you talk about customer service, as products become more technical, engineered, you have devices now, right? We were just at another firm in Wisconsin, and like they have highly engineered products and they like have to have the engineering team help. And so like they're using generative AI to basically enable their customer service reps to comb through these 90-page technical manuals and say, hey, what are the top 3 responses to this question? So again, your customer experience is better, like that. Again, simple use case, simple thing, big impact, right? So just like it, and that's what's happening in the world of AI right now is you're becoming like you're using this to kind of like grow yourself, right? So
yeah. So we're not just talking about generative AI, obviously. There's a lot of work that's packaging different forms of AI, machine learning, and then even automation to make things happen. And one of those spaces I know is predictive analytics and decision making. How can more advanced AI be used for predictive analytics to aid decision making? And what are some of the risks involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, for this group, like there's a couple big ones, right? So I think just on, we're doing like a lot of employee churn models for organizations right now. So if you think like how most organizations do it, like you have an exit interview and then why'd you leave, right? So what this is doing is it identifies 90 days before, people that are at high risk, so you can do that. So that's a great one. I think if anybody has like a heavy labor workforce, so doing workforce planning, right? I think those are like, this again, everybody's doing those. That's where we get asked to build right now, or those kinds of models on that. You know, the risks, I think the benefits outweigh the risks of those, because those are new innovations for a lot of people. You know, the risks are that it doesn't get adopted, right? It doesn't get utilized. There's not really a lot of, you know, you gotta make sure you've got, you know, your secure environments, right? So you're covering it, so you're not exposing private data and those kinds of things. And again, I think the other risk is the fear of it, right? You know, you've got to align, when you're even doing predictive, generative, doesn't matter. You've got to align your AI development with like your core values of your company, right? So like at BDO, we're people first, and we have that. And I tell us all the time, right? And I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in where people go, "Can we do that?" You know, and everybody goes, "I don't know, dude. What do you think?" Right? With that data, right? So I think you got to align that. I think so. The risk is, you know, you could erode trust with your employees by using, you know, employee data. So you got to really align your business values with your AI development, right? Otherwise, it could. I feel like that's the biggest risk, is like
one example of a risk too is inappropriate use by leaders of the predictive analytics that they're being given. In talking with our people analytics board several years ago, actually, they talked about the example that many pursue, which was talent risk, who's at most risk of leaving the organization. And that would seem like on the face good information to give managers.
Totally right.
The potential downside was if they use it in an inappropriate way. So if they say, "Oh, you're telling me these 3 people might leave," well, then I'll give up on them, and it's hopeless to. So I'm not going to assign them to things. I'm not going to give them training. Not going to give them opportunities if they're just going to leave anyway. As opposed to you've given me this information. That's a yellow flag for me. I should now do stay interviews with them and make sure that they do stay with the organization if they'd be regrettable losses. Yeah. So. Yeah, it's all about the unintended consequences, I think, of making sure leaders know what to do with that data.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal right now. That's where the topic of responsible AI comes in. Like, ideally, you know, you have the benefits where you want to use that for good, but like some people will use it to be like, well, you know, not dealing with them anymore because, you know, they're going to leave, right? And, you know, and I'm going to go after them because of that, right? And I have that data, right? So again, that's where I say, like, with this group on workforce and people, this is a heavy workforce communication, people, you know, like kind of thing. That's I think that's going to be the hardest part about AI transformation over the next 5-10 years.
Speaking of which, you know, what's in your crystal ball when you think about trends? What's coming next?
What is coming next? Yeah, well, I'll tell you what the talk is in my circle. So I'm part of a chief AI group that just started meeting at the end of last year, and they, you know, there's basically this group said there's 600 chief AI officers on LinkedIn in the world, like 200 of them are real, you know, and it's like, and we had like 50 of them in the room. That's where I met, you know, Kevin, your head researcher, right? You know, and like, I'll tell you what everybody talks about. Like, this year is the word of like, this is the foundational year, right? Of like, my buddies ask me, what do you do now with AI? I'm like, we're still kind of doing the same stuff, but it's under AI, right? You know, we're building platforms, we're helping with adoption on that. So the word on the street is next year is really going to be, next year is going to be really the transformative year, right? In AI, right? And so what I think comes next is, you're going to get an acceleration. You're going to get a point where organizations are going to have to make a decision of like, either they're going to invest in it or they're not, or they're going to be way behind. This is probably moving faster. I mean, I've been around a while, so I was around with cloud, I was around with social media, right? And this one is going faster than even all of those, right? So I think the adoption is going to be going much faster. I think that they're going to come out with stuff. I think the big black hole, what's next is the roles that are going to come out of this, right? I think it's a big deal. Nobody knows, you know, there's lots of talk of AI researcher, AI prompt engineers, AI data developers, right? I think that's good. I mean, there's so much, and there's so much that even myself and my team, we don't even know, right? And we're just trying to, and we have advanced analytics and master's degrees and PhDs and stuff. And so those are all things. So people, you know, getting ready, competition, right? Those are all big deals right now.
Absolutely.
And it's going so fast. And what I'll tell you today will change next week, you know, because it is going so fast and it's evolving quickly. So,
any advice for the HR leaders on this call?
No, great question. Yeah, I would just say make incremental progress. Don't be afraid. You got, to kind of dip your toe in the water, whether it is on predictive, whether it is on generative, right? Because what you'll be, 3 to 6 months at the end of summer, you'll be farther ahead, right? And you'll have more knowledge and you'll be able to enable your teams, enable your workforce on that. So invest a little bit, make incremental progress. I think you'll be okay.
Right. And last question, this is one we like to pose on this show, is what do you look for in people who want to join your team?
It's interesting. Last question. What I look for, to be honest with you, is the soft skills, right? Because even in the world of AI right now, when everything's being automated, like the people skills, the dynamics, like relationships, those are big deals right now. And the people that can do that, I think, are going to be the ones that are going to survive and thrive in the AI world right now.
Yeah, I've read a couple articles along those lines that it's a really good double major, computer science and English, or computer science and psychology, or computer science and philosophy. Those kinds of things. Those are more powerful than maybe they were 20 years ago.
Well, and that gives me hope the robots won't replace us. No.
I don't think it. I think it's even more. Honestly, I think it's more important. I actually think it's more important now than it's ever been. Right, to have, to have that interpersonal, to have that, communication, to have that, do the interpretation, helping people, more important than ever.
Well, Rob,
thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a pleasure talking with you again. This hour has gone so fast, and I will turn it over to Tom.
Yeah, I'll double down on that. Thank you, Rob, for sharing the insights that you've gleaned from your clients at BDO Digital and from just all of your 15 years of experience in analytics and now in AI. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. It's great. Good discussion.
As Zeta shared over in the chat, and as I've got up here on the screen, all of our Next Practice Weekly calls are available for recertification credit hours from both HRCI and SHRM. So if you're an HR professional that has a cert and need your recert credit hours, just jot down the relevant program ID or activity ID, and you'll be all set there. Feel free to reach out to us at I4CP with any questions on membership or anything else I4CP related. Hope you have a great rest of your week, everyone, and then be back with us again next Thursday for another great guest. Thanks, everybody.